that we covered whenever I was recording this stuff for you to watch, and so I'm guessing you're doing okay with that stuff. This lesson, at the core, at least the first part of it, is adding radicals. And in order to add radicals, or terms with radicals, remember that this symbol is called a radicand, okay, and that makes it a radical. In order to add radicals, they have to be like radicals, just like a like term. Okay. So looking at these three different terms here, are they all like radicals? Yes, the numbers in the square root, or the square root value of all of these are the same, so these are like radicals, so we can add these together like a like term. 4 minus 5 is -1, plus 12 would be 11, and then it's just the square root of 2.
So then you take -1 plus 12?
Right. So that's simplifying down the radicals at the end. On this one, we have two different types of values underneath a radical sign. We have the square root of 3, square root of 5, and square root of 3. And so we have a pair of these that are the same. We have 4 square roots of 3 and then -6. So we go ahead and combine those. We make that -2 square roots of 3. And then plus 3 square roots of 5, because there isn't anything to simplify down with that term.
So that's this is
That would be it. And we have two different pairs. We have a -3 square roots of 2 and a -2 square roots of 2. That'd be -5 square roots of 2. Then a +5 and a +8 square roots of 3 is a +13 square roots of 3.
So there's no way to combine the 5 and the 3, or the 2 and the 2?
No, no. Other than changing them to decimal values. And we're not doing that. Is that as easy or is that as hard as it gets? For now, I think that's as easy as it gets. What about this one? Yeah, there isn't anything we can do on this one. Because they're all different, so that's as simplified as it can be.
Will there be problems like that?
Probably not.
I don't know. I don't remember there being that, but... Oh, yes. Overall average, is that what this is?
Why would go average?
No.
It's a little different.
Can I get
Don't
one?
roll your eyes at me.
I didn't roll at you.
It was the idea of it.
Yes.
Alright, let's see what this is about. Jim's scores were 60, 70, 80, and 90. What is the weighted average of its scores if the tests were weighted 1, 2, 4, and 6 in that order? Okay, this isn't quite exactly the same as overall average, but yet it kind of is. We do weighted scores in figuring your math grades. Your test scores are worth 60%. Your homework's worth 40%. We weight it that way. The way that it's worded here is a little different. Basically, they're saying, all right, the first test of 60, we're counting that one time. The 70, we're counting it twice. The 80 was counted 4 times, and the 9, 6 times, or 96 times. We can use the overall average idea for these because we have one item that averaged a 60. That's what they're saying. Our average test on that, for that one, was a 60. So the total for that part is 60. Then the average, or the test that was a 70, we're going to count that twice. So 2 times 70 is 140. Then we're going to count that score of an 80 4 times, 320. And then the 90 we're counting 6 times. And that's 540. And so then we add down we get 1060, I believe. Okay. What is the weighted average of the test scores if the tests were weighted that? Okay, and this is a total of what would amount to be 13 tests if they were counting some of those tests multiple times. Because they counted the first test just one time. They counted the second test 2 times. So that would be a total of 3 now. Then 4 is 7, 6 would be 13. So how would you find the weighted average?
1060
Divided by 13. 81.54. I want to check and make sure I'm telling you right on this. Sometimes I forget what they...
It says in the book.
Is it?
Yeah.
Good. So I did it correctly. It makes me feel better. Alright, so 81.54. So rounding that to 2 decimal places would be your overall average.
Why? We don't leave it 81.54?
Rounding it to 2 decimals. Because it's actually 81.5378, 538461, so on. Okay. Why? Well, let's just say they took the test, 4 different tests, got 60, 70, 80, and 90 like this. What would you expect the average to be? Just what could we expect it to be if it wasn't weighted?
75.
75, right? Okay. Why then does this? Why is it pulled up to 81%, Ethan?
Because some of them count as more.
Because the ones that are higher than our middle, or 75, this 80 and the 90s, count much more, have more value because they count multiple times. And so that pulls that average up towards them instead of down here where there's fewer of those. Okay. In the graduate course Smith R was taking, each of the 3 tests were weighted 20%, and the final paper was weighted 40%. Smith's scores on the 3 tests were 60, 70, and 80. His score on the final paper was 60%. What was Smith's overall score for the class?
So times that 3 scores by...
Okay.
We gotta find out how many there is.
Excuse me?
We gotta find out how many tests there are.
Well, we know how many tests there were. There were 3. Okay, so we have 3 tests. And he got a 60, 70, and an 80 on those 3 tests. Okay, so we're going to do this 60 plus 70 plus 80. All right.
Can we not use our box?
Well, you could. Yes, and I can show you how to do it in just a second. I think we can do it. This is what I used to do to figure my grade going into finals at college, to determine which classes I needed to study for. I would do something like this to find out, okay, if I've got a solid 85 and it's going to take a 197 out of 200 to move me up, or a 15 out of 200 to move me down, then I'm studying for that class. I've got a B, I'm going to keep my B. There's no way to get an A unless I ace it, and I'm not expecting to ace it, so I would do that kind of stuff with this idea. All right, so we know the 3 tests, 60, a 70, and 80. I think this is the way the book will show it. I don't like it as well, but we'll go with it. All right, his final score on the paper was a 60, correct? Let's not do that yet.
There's like
do it this other way. The first test was a 60%. So 60 times, it's worth 20%. So 20% as a decimal is 0.2. So that would equal, this, well, I'm just going off of a score of a 60 out of 100. So I'm changing that 60% score to just calling it a 60. Okay, so don't get that confused. That's a good point. So a 60 times 0.2, what is it? 12. Okay. So basically for the class, that test gave him 12 points. Okay. Then he took a 70, or had a test that was a 70, takes that times 0.2, 14. 80 times 0.2 is 16. Then he got an 80%, his score was a 60 on the final. And it's worth 40%, so I'm going to take that times 0.4, and that gives you 24. When you add these values up, now, that will give you the score, his total score for the class. 6, 12, 16, carry the 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So his overall average would be a 66%. Huh? Didn't he fail the class? Yeah. When I gave you did I give you your grade reports yesterday? Let's use, whose is this? Coles. Shall we use Coles? Ooh, we better not. Let's say, hypothetically, that your paper had tests 93.6, homework was 76.2. How do we figure the overall average when we know the tests are 60%, homework's 40%? Morgan, is that a hand or was that just to hold your hand like that moment?
What?
Was that a hand by holding your hand like this?
My hand's not good.
Were you raising your hand?
No.
Okay, Kelsey.
You times 76.2 by 0.4.
You take the 76.2 times 0.4 because it's 40% of your grade. And take the 93.6 times 0.6, because what does 0.6 plus 0.1 give us?
0.4.
A value of, if we add those two together, 1. It gives you that 100% of the class, one whole. So I'm going to take the 93.6 times 6, or 0.6, is 56.16, and then if I take the 76.2 times 0.4, it's 30.48. Add those two together, 86.64 would be your percent.
Nice percent sign.
That's not easy.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, thanks.
Flower.
Okay, so that's how we figure your grades. Now the book, if you would look at it, the book, it shows it differently, doesn't it? And that's what I was going to, oh, that's how they did it. Don't look at the book. Don't look at the book. That's not the way they did it. Do it this way. Okay? Because the books.
Don't look at the book, Kelly. Don't be confused. You're not already. Mr. Lane about making Kelly's head explode.
Oh, yeah. Let's do another hypothetical situation. Not a hypothetical. Let's do one of my situations from college. I did very poorly in calculus the first time I took it. Okay, I started off, and I'll try to make this as real as it can be. I started off my first test, I got a 76%. That's not right. It was worse than that. My bad. I got a 64%.
What's your mom at?
In college, I don't. She didn't really know because I was in college.
Because you didn't tell her. What?
And I didn't tell her. I just told her I wanted to drop the class after the second test that I got a 49 on.
49.
Yeah. And she goes, "You're not dropping that class. You're going to be a math major. You're going to figure it out."
Are you a math major?
I had to be able to do this.
That's what my brother is.
Yeah. And so I got a 49 on my second test, and this is my second semester of college. And the first semester of college I had not done so well on either, and it wasn't because I was doing what other kids were doing and not doing as well, because many students think that it's party time when they go in as freshmen and they don't do well grade-wise because they party too much. I wasn't doing that. I just had to learn how to study. And so after I got this second test score and Mom said, "You're not dropping the class," I had to figure out how to study. And when I did, things got much better. I think I ended up finishing the year with a 92, 91, and an 88 or something like that.
What do you mean you don't learn how to study?
I had to learn how to sit down and study and go over what the teacher had went over with us,
You never did that before.
because I was able just to get by and do it just off of
That's
whatever I
me.
did.
That's me. That's exactly how I do it. And I'll probably have to do
He
this.
does do everything you said. When I said he had no work, he does do it all I said. We were together.
I know.
Just like, what do you want? What are you doing?
So, let's say then, these were the 5 test scores. And the 5 test scores amounted to, we'll use, what would have been the number? We'll just use 60%. Okay? The final then was going to be a 40% of the final, and it was a 200-point test. Okay? And it's worth 40%. Let's figure where I'm at right now. What is the average? Did you already do it? Go ahead. Well, I'm just going to find the average of these. What's the average of these test scores?
You got
Add up and divide by 1, 2.
Add them up. So
5.
these, I'm not doing anything tricky on this. I'm just adding these up.
You don't have to times them or anything?
No.
Dividing by 5. He's finding the average.
It was a little bit different because the total is 384. See, the last one gave us specific values for each test. The total of your test score counted towards 60%. So 384 divided by 5 is 76.8. Okay, so then I need to know what 60% of that is. Okay, to find out how many points are going towards it all. 76.8 times 0.6 is a total of 46.08. Okay, so going into the final, I knew I had 46 and 800ths out of 100 total points before we add the final points in. Okay, so if I would have gotten a 0 on the final,
You would have gotten an F.
I'd have got a 46.8. That's what that amounts to.
What'd you say?
So when I sat down to decide, how hard do I want to study out for this calculus test, I had to figure where am I at grade-wise overall. Let's see if I would have aced the test. So I would have gotten a 200 out of 200. That would have been 100, and then times the 40% would have been how many points? 40 points, because this is 100 times 0.4 would be 40. So if I add
You get a B.
so if I ace the final, I could get an 86 .08.
What did you really get on the
Okay. Let's see what would it have been if I got a 50% on the final. So instead of a 100, I get a 100 out of 200. So that would have been only 20 of the points, right? And then I'm in the right, it'd be 66. Why aren't you working? Okay, there we go. So add 20 points to that, gives me a 66.08. So I'm sitting in my dorm room going, okay, I'm not going to get an A. That's not happening. It's not physically possible. However, if I don't do very well, I can end up with a D. Okay, 66. So I know in my head I have to score, well, where does the B range fall? Let me see what 150 is. 150 times, that's what, a 75%? 75 times 0.4 is 30 points. That puts me at a 76.08. I know then, crud, I have to get a C on this test just to maintain the C, or I'm in trouble. Because I can survive a C, but I don't want another D, like I had done first semester on a couple of classes. Embarrassed to death by it. I just didn't study. I just didn't study. I would go to class, listen, and think I'd go into test thinking I knew it without reviewing it. There's just more information than I could.
So you don't get always like that in high school?
I was stubborn. Huh?
You don't get worksheets.
Well, they take notes, but I wouldn't review my notes. So I just take them and.
I
Yeah, I know. I know that now.
I never did.
You didn't study, that's your own fault, you got a 9 grade in calculus.
Did you not have to study in high school?
No, not really. It wasn't because I was so smart. It just wasn't real
I never
hard
studied.
stuff.
I never studied.
So anyway, I ended up getting a C in the class. If you want, I heard somebody say, so what did you end up? I ended up getting a C. Okay. I don't know. I don't remember what my decision was. If I tried to get an A in this, or tried to get to B in this class or not, I don't remember that. But this is what I would do. This is how I would use this stuff. And I would figure every one of my classes so I could manage my classes and spend the right amount of time in the right classes that had a chance to do something with. Now,
Did you have to do a whole bunch of math to determine what hours you would study?
that's what I'm saying. Now, just so that I get a moment to brag and to redeem myself for telling you that I had 2 D's on the first semester, and then I tanked calc to start with, which is the basic core of the math curriculum in the math department. Is by the time I graduated, I did make the academic team, the track and field academic team, which I think you have to have like a 3.2.
Track and field academic?
All academic. Huh?
What's that got to do with your math score?
Track and
I picked it up a notch after I started with D's and C's.
So then you
That's
can
if
get on
you
track.
get
What
all
does
A's.
No,
What does track
that
have?
don't. You just plug your ears, because this ranks in pales in comparison to what your mom did academically.
What is track and
Her
field?
mom, and you don't have to tell her I said this because it embarrassed her. Okay, I'm not expecting you to be anything like this. If you want to, you can. But her mom was the actual academic athlete of the year in all Division II.
And she ran track like a beast.
So this is really small plaque. Her mom got one of those big ones you carry like this. Okay.
Wait a second. What
You
does
get that
track
little
and
flag.
field have to do
Where is
with
that thing
academics?
He worked his way to
If anyone that maintains a certain GPA and they're a junior or senior or whatever gets mentioned as being an academic. And then if you're an academic all conference, then you have a chance to be academic all region. And it's not based on your performance as an athlete, it's your performance being on the team and then your grade.
You shouldn't put mine on your wall plan. Put it up on top. I'm gonna draw this shit.
It's solving areas of curved objects and taking derivatives and integral.
That doesn't sound hard. That's calculus?
After I learned what was going on, it wasn't hard. I retook it, because you can retake these, you will learn everything if you get into pre-calculus.
So just do our assignment.
Okay. He started
I'm enjoying it. Hey, Mr. Lovenger?
Yes.
I'm already halfway done with
If
it.
we're passing with a nice low B in this class, we totally don't understand half of the stuff. Would it be smart for me to retake algebra next year? I'm retaking it.
Wait,
Or I
can you
do
read
Problem
it?
set 65, 1 through 30. Let me get this and then I'm going to shut the recording off and then we can talk about that. So I'm not on record for saying.
That?
Yeah.
Why would you